Hey, what's up YouTube? As I'm sure you know, reefing ain't easy. Today, I hope to shed some light on a very common topic and make reefing a little bit easier for you. I'm going to be talking about Aiptasia. Now, if you're new to the hobby and you haven't actually seen Aiptasia, if you stay in it long enough, I would bet that you're going to see it. Hopefully not in your actual tank, but if you go to enough shows, local fish stores, chances are you'll eventually see it somewhere, and I'm guessing if you're watching this video, you probably have it in your tank. Now, first thing is, take a deep breath, don't worry, it's not a death sentence. It's really not too bad and it can be beaten. Is it annoying? Yes. Is it a pest? Yes. Is it going to cost some money or some time to get rid of it? Yes, it is. But take a deep breath, you're fine. You don't have to freak out and immediately react. You're going to be just fine. Aiptasia can be beat. Now, let me explain why I say that. I feel like I am uniquely qualified to talk about Aiptasia due to my history with it. So this tank right here, I have a service business and I traded my services for this tank. I wanted to get into the hobby. It was a good deal for both parties, and the gentleman who gave me this tank, he lost interest in the hobby and let the tank go downhill. One of the things that he did was there was Aiptasia in there and he let it literally take over the tank. There was tons and tons of Aiptasia. A buddy of mine who got me into the hobby came with me to look at this tank, and he basically said I would take all the equipment, but I would just start over with the tank. I wouldn't try to keep anything because the Aiptasia problem was so bad. I'm stubborn. I thought I could beat it, so I didn't go that route, and I did beat it. I can safely say, at least in my display, I have not seen Aiptasia for about 3 months. I'm going to get towards the end of the video when we talk about eradicating it, where it might be hiding, where you can't see. Spoiler, it was the overflow box, and I've gotten rid of that, and it's been about a month. No Aiptasia, knock on wood. You know, I'm not saying the game's over yet, but it's nice to see 3 straight months, no Aiptasia in my tank. So that's why I feel like I'm uniquely qualified, and I've done a ton of research on the subject, so I just want to educate you in an efficient, quick manner, so hopefully you can watch this video, know everything you need to know about Aiptasia, and know the steps that you need to take to get rid of it. So you found Aiptasia in your tank, and you want to get rid of it. You're going to start researching, Googling, watching these YouTubes. Here's the stuff that you're going to hear. I put them in 2 different categories. You're going to hear category 1 is how you can actually kill them with some kind of chemical. You'll hear super glue, vinegar, hot RO water, lemon juice, hydrogen peroxide, Aiptasia X. You'll even hear electrocute them with electric rods, hit them with a laser, all kinds of different stuff, and I put those in one category. Now the other thing you're going to hear about is how to kill it with livestock. So peppermint shrimp, copper band butterfly, the filefish, the nudibranchs, the little slugs that eat it. That's another way you're going to hear about killing it. When it comes to beating Aiptasia, I think the most important thing is understanding why is this a pest. Now, I don't like the way it looks, but some people are like, hey, it's an anemone, it looks cool, and they actually like it. So why even get rid of it if some people like it? Why is it a pest? Understanding why it's a pest will help you get rid of it, in my opinion. So the reason it's a pest is because it takes over, multiplies really quickly, and gets everywhere in your tank. This stuff is going to take over your entire tank because it reproduces in 2 ways. And the one way I'm going to talk about that I feel is the most important, the technical term is called petal laceration. So it has a foot that it attaches to, and then it has like open, almost looks like, I don't know, palm tree, a Duncan coral, almost like a zoa, like comes up out of the rock and has these like tentacles that come out that are stinging and whatnot. You can Google what they look like. Now, the actual foot, the petal, it'll shed off cells, and those cells go around your tank, attach somewhere else, and then grow a new Aiptasia. That's why it's a pest, because it just ends up getting everywhere all around your tank. Now, there's other ways it can reproduce, but you know, that's the asexual way, and understanding that is going to help you understand how to beat this. Now, in my opinion, there's 2 theories why when you hear stuff like, we're just going to say Aiptasia X for that first category, whether you're using lemon juice, kalkwas, or super glue, whatever you're using, there's 2 theories in my head of why people say that doesn't work. Theory 1 is they say when you go to kill it, so you're going to inject some kind of chemical into the mouth, it's going to close up, it's going to shrivel up and die. The theory is that when it does that, it shrivels up and die, the base, the foot, sends out a bunch of cells that go around the tank and attach to new spots and start growing new Aiptasia. So you kill one Aiptasia, you wait a while, 10 more pop up. That's one theory. The other theory is that, okay, you notice the Aiptasia sprouted up in your tank. Now you can kill that Aiptasia, but give it a couple months and you're gonna have a bunch more Aiptasia, because however that Aiptasia got there, it didn't come alone. It came with others that are all over your tank now, and you just don't see them because literally they're too small to see, but they're gonna turn into Aiptasia. Whether one theory is right, one theory is wrong, they're probably both right to some extent. We're just gonna assume both are correct. Now when you assume that, you know that that first way of beating Aiptasia is not going to work. The only time that you might see Aiptasia and be one and done, get rid of it, is you bought a brand new frag, you made the mistake of putting that frag on the plug into your tank, and then you see the Aiptasia on that frag. If you pull that frag out and you remove the coral from that plug and never let that plug go back in your tank, you might get lucky where you saw one Aiptasia and it was a one and done thing. But if you just see one sprouting up on your rock somewhere random, it's already in multiple places in your tank that you just can't see. One other theory that I actually don't see much about, but I know for sure works, is let's say that you have a rock structure and your rocks like aren't glued down and you see an Aiptasia on one rock. If you have the option to remove corals on that rock so that it just has Aiptasia on it, if you take that rock and submerge it in fresh water, fresh RODI water, let it sit there for a few hours and then bring it back, that's a good way to kill Aiptasia. And the theory behind that is the one you can actually see it's going to kill. And if there's a bunch of other microscopic ones on that rock, it will also kill those. Now, you're going to kill anything else on that rock, and that could create problems in and of itself. Even if it's just algae, now when you reintroduce that to the tank, you're going to have your nitrates, phosphates are going to come up. I'm not sure how much bacteria is going to survive that, if any at all, but it might need to be recolonized with beneficial bacteria and whatnot. But I do know that absolutely works, and the big reason I say that is you might notice that it's on your equipment. So if it's on a pump or something, just take the pump out, throw it in some fresh water, leave it there for a while, put it back in, the Aiptasia is gone. You might even notice it like on an overflow you might even notice it on a return line, and maybe you can disconnect that, submerge it, or even just raise it up out of your tank, put it in a water bottle full of fresh water, something like that. I'm going to save that freshwater idea in a minute to really tell you how to eradicate. So now let's get to how to actually beat it. So all those first things I talk about, they're not going to work because you're never going to catch up. You're going to be zapping them, hitting them all, but they're everywhere. There's a bunch more that you can't see, and by the time you can see, you zap it and there's a bunch more. So it's a never-ending cycle. It's never going to actually eradicate the problem. What it is good for is, let's say that you're going to have some people come over this weekend, you want to show them your tank, and you've got a couple ugly Aiptasia, go ahead and hit them with some Aiptasia X or something. They'll disappear. You won't actually see anything. Your tank looks good. That's what it's good for, but it's not a long-term solution. The long-term solution is you need to use one of that first category where you're going to have some kind of livestock actually eat it. Filefish eat corals, so good luck with that. Copper band butterfly fish, the filefish, peppermint shrimp, they are known to eat Aiptasia, but not all of them actually do it. So you might get one and it doesn't eat your Aiptasia. That's a big bummer. So that's why I'm a little hesitant on those. Furthermore, with the fish thing, if you're actually going to quarantine these fish, think about it. If you've got an established tank, like I do, I've got a purple tang in there. I'm going to go through 30 to 45 days quarantining fish, make sure they're healthy. Then I'm going to put them in my tank, and then that guy's going to bully the heck out of them, and they might not even survive. That's just the reality. Reefing ain't easy. You buy fish, put them in your tank, it's established. A lot of them don't make it. It's sad, but it's true. That's what happens. A lot of them don't make it through the quarantine process, and then if you're not even quarantining them, which I'm not going to say that's like a terrible thing, but it could wipe out all the fish in your tank because it might have marine velvet. It's a very delicate thing adding new fish, but the biggest thing there is these things might not even eat it. So I've seen I can get 100 peppermint shrimp, and it's in my opinion, they're not the prettiest shrimp. They do a great job of hiding so you don't see them much, but I don't want 50 peppermint shrimp in my tank. Maybe you can catch them all, bring them back to your local fish store, I don't know, but I just don't like that method. And just the fact that sometimes they don't eat them, I don't think that's a good way. Now, the nudibranchs, the little slugs, those guys only eat Aiptasia, and they do work. And in my opinion, that's the best route to go. I tried all the other routes, and had the struggles with it, and I'm just telling you, in my opinion, that's the best way to go. Now there is one downside to that. If you have wrasses, there's a good chance the wrasses are going to eat those nudibranchs. So if you have wrasses, I would definitely recommend getting the large nudibranchs and get more than enough. I know it's expensive, but if you really want to get rid of the Aiptasia, in my opinion, that's the best way to go about it. And if you don't have wrasses, you're in luck. I did have a 6-line wrasse. I put about 10 large nudibranchs in this tank, and a couple weeks later, the wrasse died. I have no idea why. It's kind of weird. My suspicion, just because it was the only thing I changed in my tank, is maybe the nudibranchs, you know, ate a bunch of Aiptasia, had the toxins in its body. The fish ate the nudibranch and died. I don't know. So that is something to be wary about. But I know there's a lot of people out there that might not even have a wrasse, or a wrasse that's going to eat nudibranchs. So there is something to be a little bit careful with there. If you can't do the nudibranchs because you have wrasses and you're worried about that angle, your next best option is a copper band butterfly, in my opinion, and just hope that it likes and has a taste for Aiptasia. Now, whichever route you go, hopefully you can go the nudibranchs because in my opinion they're better. You're gonna get a bunch of those, you're gonna put them in your tank, and don't expect this to change overnight. This is gonna take months. It doesn't happen very quickly. In fact, I put them in there, waited a couple weeks, I'm like, oh great, they're not doing anything. Maybe my wrasse ate them. I was convinced that it wasn't gonna work. I waited a little bit longer, and all of a sudden, they slowly started to disappear. Now, let me tell you, in my opinion, you need to attack this from 2 ways. You need both of those categories. So copper band butterfly or the nudibranchs, put them in your tank, and then I like Aiptasia X. You can use, if you want to use a lemon juice or vinegar or something else, go for it. My personal opinion, I really like the Aiptasia X, and you're gonna do both at the same time. So the Aiptasia X, you're gonna hit all the ones you can physically see and get rid of them all so you don't see anymore. And then the livestock is actually going to get the ones that you can't see. A lot of them are hidden back behind rocks where it's just out of the line of sight. And a lot of them are too small to actually see. It's like playing Where's Waldo, especially if you've got a decent sized tank. I mean, it is really hard to see them. They're pretty, almost a clearish color. And when they're really small, you're not going to, you might not even, like, it's like, is that one? I can't tell. That's where the livestock comes into play. Now, here's my experience with the nudibranchs, and it could have been because where I placed them. I basically had like 3 rock structures. It was a little different than how it is right now, but I put 3, 3, 3, and like 1 up high, and it took months, so give it time, be patient, but it seemed as if the Aiptasia disappeared from the bottom up. And what was really bizarre to me is, you know, I'm like, man, I don't see any Aiptasia. And then I started noticing behind my gyres, they were like hidden behind there. My returns, like all the way up at the very, very top was where the Aiptasia was. And I was able to kill those. A couple months went by and I was like, great, I no longer have Aiptasia. I was so excited, so happy. And then I was cleaning my tank and I pushed my lights back. I was on a ladder, you know, getting in there, siphoning some stuff out, doing some maintenance. I looked back into my overflow. My overflow holds like maybe 6-7 gallons. And the biggest Aiptasia I've ever seen were in there. Now those nudibranchs, I don't think they ever made it into the overflow, and if they did, I'm guessing maybe just got sucked right into the filter sock down into the sump. But there's no Aiptasia in my sump, tons of Aiptasia in my overflow, and the nudibranchs either didn't have enough time to get there, I just don't think that they're strong enough swimmers to not get sucked up into the sock. So my point here is when you use your copper band or your nudibranchs and you're zapping it with the Aiptasia X, and once it's completely gone, remember to check your overflow, because if it's like me, they're going to be hiding in there. Now what's nice about the overflow is, remember I said you can take out that rock, freshwater, dip it, and it'll kill them? That's what I did. I drained out my overflow so there was no salt water in there. There's a little bit down at the bottom, and this is why I recommend don't just like let it dry out, because it's like, oh, I'll just siphon out, let it dry out. You'd actually be surprised. These Aiptasia will retain the water, and you might think it's dry, but it's going to come back to life and survive. The other reason is there might be some microscopic cells down there that you can't see that are at the bottom of your overflow, and you can't drain all the water out. There'll be like a tiny little bit of water left over. Long story short, fill it up with fresh water. It's going to kill everything in there. But yeah, I drained the overflow, filled it up with fresh water, left it for a few hours, drained that out, refilled it with salt water, got my tank rolling again, and it's been a month. Checked my overflow, don't see any Aiptasia. It's clean as a whistle. My overflow is pretty dirty as well, so it was a good time to maintain it. And you know, knock on wood, I haven't seen any Aiptasia in my tank, and it is such a huge relief. Now, I will give you a little bit more of the backstory. What I did, and I'll make another video because this caused a lot more problems. It's like whack-a-mole. You know, I took out about 75% of the rock in here, so you could say I removed 75% of the Aiptasia, and I let it sit outside for months and completely die. And then I reintroduced it back into my tank, and that's a whole nother video. But so I was only dealing with 25% of the original amount, which was still probably at least 100 Aiptasia, and was killing all those off and going through this whole process. So I hope that helps you. Just to recap, copper band butterfly, nudibranchs, Aiptasia X, attack it, check your overflow, use the things I talk about here today. You will get rid of the Aiptasia. It is going to cost you some money. It is going to take some time, but it's not a death sentence. Relax. You just want to make sure you're keeping it under control, because if you do nothing, it will eventually take over your tank and suffocate out corals, fish, other things, and it's going to look ugly. So just remember, it's a battle you got to fight. But you guys already know, reefing ain't easy, it's just a part of reefing. See you next time.